Hello everyone, this year's art show is called a show of hands, and I explained to the students that that is a term for voting. Like, let's see a show of hands for everybody who likes ice cream. But in this meeting, our art show is about hands, and these are the sign language letters for each letter of the show of hands, and different students drew them. So they're really great. It's interesting how, some, like the O, actually looks like an O, right? The L looks pretty much like an L, because there's no L in here. But I learned a lot about sign language. Over here, pre-K use their hands to make the shapes of animals. They use their hands like stamps, dipping them in paint. And like for JoJo's leopards or ocelots, a jaguar. So she printed her hands and added a tail and put the spots and the faces on. Emily did poison dart frogs, and Anna Roberts has ocelots. And Lucienne did a lizard. These are animals of Mexico. Zachary did coatis. Don't know if I say that right. Lila's got butterflies, and Everett Brescia did a boa, red-tailed boa. On the other side, kindergarten students made portraits of themselves, which had to do with the word handsome, from hands. And we worked on making a three-dimensional nose, which is really hard for anyone. And kindergarten did an amazing job with it. They also really worked hard to make the individual shapes of the upper lip and lower lip and the eyelids, which is tough cutting for little hands. They did a great job with this. On the next slide, we're going to skip to first grade. Sorry, this is kindergarten. We're skipping to first grade. And they did a painting of hand washing. We did so much hand washing this year. So they drew, and again, this was really difficult for kids to draw one hand and put the other hand over it. That's a concept that's difficult for young children. And we talked about the inside of your hand being much paler than the outside. So we only used paint on the outside hand that lays on top. And then they printed soap bubbles all over them. So, and chose the background color so that the soap bubbles would show. So everybody really worked hard on this one, and I was impressed by how well they turned out. Over here, third graders. Sorry for that. Third graders did their hands. They drew the actual fingerprints and the lines in their hands as best they could. We borrowed a microscope from Mrs. Morrison that was able to take pictures of their fingerprints and anything else, part of their hand too. And the close-ups look really abstract and very, very interesting, I thought. And all of us were so amazed by how different all of our fingerprints were. Some of them are more like a loop. Some of them were like a perfect bullseye. It was pretty amazing. So they turned out really well. They used pen and ink after they drew them. And another thing was difficult for some kids to learn was how far down on your hand your thumb is. And that's how you are able to use it so well to grasp, because it's in a different place, and of course the joints are a little different than the rest of your fingers. Fourth graders did two projects. The first was the father of the blues was the subject of this, William Christopher Handy. So he is famous for the song Memphis Blues, and he played the trumpet and the cornet. And he knew that he was very artistically gifted, musically gifted at a very, very young age, because when he heard birds sing, he could separate their songs into actual notes, which I guess is standard for musicians, but it's not anything I ever thought of. So fourth graders had to come up with their own composition using the horns, the music, and birds. And I think they did an amazing job with it. Really, really looks good. The next thing was the fourth graders did was self-portraits that use their hands in different expressions. So you can see Axel is kind of in a thoughtful pose with his hand on his chin there like that. And Emily has both a peace sign and the OK sign with her hands. Nicholas has his hand over his heart. Yvette has the peace sign. Caden has his hands in a thoughtful pose, laced across his chest. And Elle has a hand over her mouth and the peace sign. Fifth graders were asked to make a tracing of their hand and then have it holding something, which became these low relief or bas relief sculptural pieces. Low relief and bas relief refer to the fact that this is not a freestanding sculpture. You can't get all the way around it. It projects out of a plane. So you can see phones and keys and microphones. Ben made sushi. Tyler's got an avocado. And the happy face that Lainey made is actually a gymnastics grip, which is something I learned. I never knew about that. Walter did a piece of pizza. Aaron shows his special watch. And Matan's got a phone with really great little apps showing on it. Very, very tiny detailed apps on Matan's phone. Across here, Bella also did a gymnastics grip. Kaylin did piano keys, and Darian did basketball hoop. Got flowers, another phone, and Tony did chopsticks. Fifth graders also drew their hands casting shadows in the shapes of animals. That's not something you see or hear very much about anymore, but I found some pictures that they used to work from, and they carefully drew them in pencil and then used pen and ink to outline their hands and then to make the shadow. So they came out really well. There's spiders and dogs' heads, horses, and birds. So, really nice work from the fifth grade. These are a few more of the hand shadow animals. These are sixth graders' sign language drawings of their hands. And we did mention that Ian got off pretty lightly here, and people like Solomon and Charlotte had a lot more work. But they, again, did a really nice job with these. Some of the letters were really difficult. X and R seem to be really tough for students. I don't see, of course, Xander was really the one that had, only one that had the X, but there were plenty of R's. This was another 6th grade project that I started at the last minute and was pretty tough. And some students are still working on these. These students did handstands, and I took pictures, and then they drew themselves in the handstand. And even just doing the handstand would have been next to impossible for me, and the drawing was very difficult, especially for students who couldn't hold the handstand for very long and ended up collapsing, which is David over there. You can just see mostly his hair because he kind of crunched over, but still it turns out to be a really nice drawing. And Tyson's here, and the kids were really laughing because drawing somebody's nose when you can see mostly nostrils makes it look very much like an animal in some way. So, but they really did, they worked hard on these and they turned out well. These are doodles done by Mrs. McManus's class, and the work is very tiny and meticulous, really beautiful. We had skipped over 2nd grade, and their work is here on the table. They made kind of a sculptural bowl. They traced their hands and made them out of clay, and then colored them, and they really did such a nice job. They're so bright and cheerful. Stephen Robinson, of course, used colors of the University of Michigan, which comes as no surprise. And everybody else seemed to really enjoy doing all kinds of rainbows and stripes and favorite colors. Great designs. Over here is upper school printmaking. And the beginning ones are always just one color. We use black. And they carve their blocks in these images. And then the next one is usually a rainbow roll, which this is Gabby's, soccer player, and Addison Fleming did a row of plants. Mia up here has done a sheen clay, which is the window frame. You can see the paper is a different color under this. And this is actually the view looking outside from the classroom window of the basketball and 4-square court and the weeds and the birdhouses. It's really great. Down this way is Sivan did 2 different rainbow prints of the same print of a tree that she made. And Mia did the Chrysler building, and Kenny did a rainbow roll of a lobster. Over here is fused glass, and I did not hoard the students' work as much as I should have at the beginning of this class. So these pieces were all fired in the last week. Diana's plate of vegetables, and Lila has a really nice soap dish, and Noah's little square dish there. Catherine did a plate that is a little difficult to see because the colors are all mostly clear. And here's Katie's. Well, that's everything, and I hope you enjoyed the show this year. Thank you so much.